So, Andrew, one of our mottos that we have here at Let My People Eat is we say you can have your babka and eat it too, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And one of the reasons we do that is because I need with my coffee every morning something sweet. It is because if I don't do that, I am looking for it all day. So I've just said, you know what? I can have something in the morning with my coffee. And the good news is that Tanya Rosen of Nutrition by Tanya, who was our guest on episode 41.
I remember.
She has come out with her TAP products.
Great.
Yeah. So she has muffins that are high in fiber. They have no oil, no sugar substitutes, and no preservatives.
That's great.
Yeah. They come in a variety of delicious flavors like chocolate chip, which is my favorite, double chocolate chip, corn, cappuccino, marble, and more. The muffins are really delicious, and they have a shelf life of 3 days, which is good because that really shows there are no preservatives.
Right, exactly.
So that you have to eat them right away. But they can stay in the freezer for up to 6 months. The muffins are under the supervision of Kehila Kashrus.
And the muffins are available in all Nutrition by Tanya locations and several supermarkets in the tri-state area and other cities, including Miami, Montreal, and Jerusalem. Visit their website at www.nutritionbytanya.com for a full list of supermarkets that carry their products.
Hello, and welcome to Let My People Eat, a podcast that provides satisfying talk about kosher nutrition. Here we clear through the clutter of nutrition speak, arm you with the clarity and confidence to eat, feel, and be your healthiest every day. I am Jill Sharfman, a board-certified holistic nutritionist living in Los Angeles.
And I'm Dr. Andrea Moskowitz, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist in Los Angeles. I use my training and experience to integrate positive lifestyle changes into my patients' lives.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Jill. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I want to know if you heard about something that happened recently in Israel. There's a group of women called Chachmat Nashim, which means the wisdom of women. Uh-huh. And what they found out is in the very Orthodox communities, the Haredi communities, people don't talk about women's health the way they should,
right? Because
of modesty reasons. So they don't refer to breast cancer as breast cancer, uterine cancer. They feel it's not sneeze to do that. So this group of women have recently set up, they raised a lot of money with Flatbush Girl, Adina Sash, who we had on the podcast a few weeks ago. And they raised enough money to put up billboards in the very frum communities in Israel, which basically say to the women, like, this is important. Your health is important. You need to guard your health, and you need to make sure that you go ahead and you take care of yourselves. So very important that they brought this to the forefront because there are women who are very worried. They're very scared. They're not sharing it with their children because they're worried about future matches and things like that. So, since February's National Cancer Prevention Month, we decided that we should really explore this topic a little bit more and make sure people are very well informed about it. Right. So here we have in studio today two people. The first one is Jenna Fields. She's the California Regional Director of Sharsheret, which opened its California office in 2016 under her leadership. Sharsheret is the National Jewish Breast and Ovarian Cancer Organization. They improve the lives of Jewish women and families living with or at increased genetic risk for breast or ovarian cancer through personalized support, and they save lives through community health education. Their services are free of charge, confidential, offered by phone, email, and snail mail. Jenna has led educational programs across the West Coast within the Jewish community and has talked about breast, ovarian cancer, and elevated risk for hereditary cancer. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband and toddler. Hey, Jenna.
Hello.
Hey, Jenna. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
The other guest we have today is Tamar Rothenberg. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist who specializes in nutrition for breast cancer thrivers in her private practice in Los Angeles. She cuts through confusing nutrition information and uses intuitive eating, body trust, and plant foods to get your power back. She's an adjunct professor of nutrition at Touro College, and most recently, she co-authored the study Coping with Cancer in the Kitchen. Hi, Tamar.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tamar.
And welcome to the podcast. So, okay, let's talk a little bit. Why don't you talk, Jen, a little bit about the statistics and why this is such a concern for, the Jewish community right now?
Yes, I thank you. And thank you so much for dedicating this podcast to this important issue and to hear about this incredible organization in Israel who's doing this work is so important. And Sharsheret is doing that work right here at home. The facts are that 1 in 8 women, regardless of your hereditary background, will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. So that statistic is pretty staggering. And what that tells us is that it is important for us to do all we can to safeguard our health, to detect cancer early so that we can get the right treatment in order to quite literally save our lives. But in the Ashkenazi Jewish community, that's not the only statistic. 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jews is a carrier of the BRCA gene mutation, and that's significantly higher risk than the general population. In the general population, it's about 1 in 500. Oh, okay. If you're a carrier of this mutation, and by the way, both men and women are carriers, you have about a 50% chance of passing it on to each one of your children. Mm. So what's important about this information is that if you are a carrier for this mutation, you have up to around an 80% chance of getting breast cancer in your lifetime, around 40% chance of getting ovarian cancer in your lifetime, and there's also increased risk for prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, melanoma, and male breast cancer.
So the chosen people has a whole new meaning.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
We say it's a club, you never want to join. But unfortunately, these are the figures for our community. And so part of the work that we do at Sharsheret is raising awareness about these statistics so that if you do have a family history for these cancers, you can speak with your healthcare professional about whether testing is right for you and your family.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So, Tamar, we want to talk to you a little bit about some of the ways that maybe we could help prevent either the initial occurrence or the reoccurrence of breast cancer. But I want to play for you a voicemail that we received because she asked a lot of good questions, and I think there's a lot here to address. So I'm going to play that now.
Sure.
Hi, Jill and Andrea. My name is Haya. I experienced breast cancer over 30 years ago, but I really wanted to ask you some questions about diet. It seems that diet, disease, and particularly breast cancer, is supposedly very related, which I'm sure is true. But there's so much information out there on the subject. It's difficult to know just what to do, which way to go, and it's changing all the time. So, for example, someone said to me the other day that, you shouldn't be eating soy products. And I said, oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. So that was the latest thing. So the question is, for me, is how do we sift through all this information that's out there? How do we know what is best for us and not best for us in terms of our diet with breast cancer? So what real scientific evidence is out there now which indicates what's truly harmful, what foods are truly harmful for people with breast cancer and what are truly beneficial. So beyond the ones we all know about fruits and veggies and fish, et cetera, like that. So if you could shed some light on that, I'd very much appreciate it. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much. And I look forward to getting an answer to this. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Can diet help prevent breast cancer reoccurrence? Is soy a problem? What is true? What is not true? What's been established? So we know that everybody has a potential risk to have cancer, but something has to trigger it. So, some of the risk factors we can't do much about, but some of them we can. So, Tamar, what do we do? How does food come into this so that it's just not another stress for us in our lives?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point, because I do see a lot of this so-called food anxiety. It's a real thing, especially around if you've had a cancer diagnosis or you have the BRCA mutation. It's very scary. But the reason, I think one of the reasons that nutrition research is so confusing is because it's a science, right? It's constantly evolving and changing, and we're learning more and more. But we actually know quite a bit about the relationship between diet and cancer and lifestyle risk. And there's some great organizations that are studying this. So to sift through some of this confusion, we want to look at really the strength of the evidence. And I think a lot of people don't realize we do have guidelines around reducing your risk of cancer. And when we talk about cancer, especially breast cancer, we're really not talking about prevention, because food does not prevent cancer. Mm-hmm. But we can talk about reducing our risk. It does play a role in that. But one of the first things we want to do is reduce that food anxiety, look at the evidence. And when we look at evidence, we want to see were there guidelines established. And yes, we do have certain guidelines. So actually the woman had asked about soy, and that there's so much misinformation around soy. Mm-hmm. So did you want me to address soy first?
Sure. Yeah, let's talk about soy, and then we can get into some of the other, specific recommendations that you have.
Great. So we have some excellent research on soy. It used to be, soy was seen as it had estrogenic properties. And so women, there is a problem that women were told to avoid it. But we have such good research behind it now that soy is not only that it's not dangerous, it's actually protective for breast cancer, and it even works together with tamoxifen to improve the effect of tamoxifen.
Tamoxifen is a drug that women are given who are suffering from breast cancer.
Sometimes, right. Mm-hmm. So what we see as protective is, in fact, the younger you eat it, the better it is. So for the moms out there, start your daughters on soy. It's perfectly safe and acceptable, and is even preventative. So, we're not talking about having huge amounts of soy, maybe 2-3 servings a day. A serving looks like maybe a cup of soy milk or a half cup of edamame and tofu. Mm-hmm. They're incredibly protective, and the longest lived people in the world eat lots of soy, right? Right. We see Asian women have the lowest rates of breast cancer. They eat tons of soy. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of get away from this misinformation and rely on the nutrition research as we know it now, that it's a good food. It's something that will enhance your health.
Right. I think the one important thing to point out is that when Asians are eating a lot of soy, they're not eating the processed soy. A lot of the things that sometimes we see in the supermarket, like eating tofu, is not the same as eating soy chips. Right. So when we're advocating, when we're saying eat soy, it's tofu, it's edamame, it's the things that are just most look like actually soy.
Right. Tempeh is another good one.
Right.
Right. So that's the whole food soy, and really not to rely on soy supplements or the soy powders. Right. We don't know if they're dangerous, but they haven't been studied as much. So they're not suggested. Exactly right. You want to stick more to the whole food soy.
Okay. So things like, she was saying like, okay, we all know eating vegetables. So vegetables are good to lower the estrogen receptor tumors. Is that something that's been proven?
Right. So again, we have excellent studies with hundreds of thousands of women, and you have to credit women who went through cancer and then agreed to be in these studies. They're fantastic. Right. That's the reason why we have this research. And we do see people. It's good to know that it's actually sometimes separated by the type of breast cancer. It's not, breast cancer, there are different types depending on the hormonal status, the receptors. So we do see that certain vegetables are a little better for certain types of breast cancer. But we do know that for sure they contain these incredible, we call them phytochemicals. These are the plant nutrients. Right. That fight off disease and inflammation and actually help repair DNA. The fiber in the vegetables works together with your liver and gets rid of excess estrogen, which is what we want.
That's a very important point. Yeah.
Right. So they have incredible benefits. Right. And the color, how did you ever pick blueberries or raspberries? and the color stains your hand, well, that's a signal that these phytochemicals are very strong. Not to say that if it doesn't have colors, they're not helpful. They are.
Right. Like cauliflower is a good vegetable too, and it's white.
Right. It's actually one of the better vegetables for breast cancer as well. It's called a cruciferous vegetable, and in the they've done enough studies to show that those are incredibly powerful nutrients to reduce breast cancer. Right. Along with broccoli and things like that. But they're a signal. They're a signal both to your eye. You know, they're eye catching for a reason. They do contain these really wonderful nutrients. And then in particular, non-starchy vegetables have a more of effect on the ER negative, reducing ER negative breast cancer. And those examples would be like beets, parsnips, turnips, spinach,
lettuce, onion, garlic, leeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And those foods, some of those foods happen to be prebiotics, which are the foods that feed your microbiota. That's your bacterial level in your entire body, but in your gut especially.
Right.
And, you know, a fascinating part of this is we're finding, I just heard a lecture by Dr. Susan Love. She's, you know, the preeminent breast cancer surgeon. She started the Susan Love Foundation. And she talked about they're now researching, there's something called the microbiome of the breast that we always thought there was just in the gut, but it turns out our breasts also have a microbiome. Wow. So, and we know that's affected by breastfeeding. Breastfeeding lowers the risk of breast cancer. And we always thought it was because of reducing estrogen, which it does. But it turns out maybe there's a microbiome effect as well. So it, you know, remains to be seen, will diet affect that as well? And it's something that's being studied now. So there's all kinds of great reasons to, you know, what I call flip the plate, right? Have your plate mostly vegetables and fruits, going plant forward. You know, one of the tips I give is look on your plate. Can you add a little more color every time? You know, going plant forward for fiber, adding fiber, seeds and nuts, things like that.
Right. So Andrea and I, of course, always come back to the Mediterranean type diet. It seems to be our favorite diet. It's a recommendation for a lot of ills that are out there. And it seems that that's probably would be something that you would recommend here as well. To your patients. And you mentioned fiber. So fiber also helps remove excess estrogen from the body. And I know in this country, we are not eating enough fiber. And it could be through grains, it could be through vegetables, but that's also very important for this here too. So, okay. So what else can we do? I guess by helping lower inflammation, we're also going to lower our risk, correct?
Right. I mean, there's different definitions of inflammation, right? The way it's used on the internet in a popular sense is not exactly. But when we talk about inflammation, it's a disease state. It's a chronic state. It's not once in a while. So a lot of these foods do reduce inflammation. And you were talking about the Mediterranean diet. Those have very, you know, anti-inflammatory foods, and they happen to be better, again, for the ER negative breast cancer. But, you know, they have to fit your lifestyle. If you don't, like, I would never tell an Asian woman to go for the Mediterranean pattern of eating. It doesn't fit her lifestyle, right? Right. So it has to fit. You have to enjoy your foods. And I always say, you know, find satisfying food that happens to be good for you. You really have to see food as nourishment and not, you know, not this good and bad food. It's toxic. It's going to cause cancer. And part of that will reduce your food anxiety and, in fact, reduce stress hormones in your body, like cortisol, which is an inflammation state, right? Right. So just by thinking, you know, being confident in your food choices, this feels good to my body, you will reduce inflammation and more effective even than some of the foods that you're eating. So it's very important to kind of relax around food. And I give an example, you know, if you have that green smoothie, that's of course not going to cure cancer. But if you like, what's your favorite cake, for example?
What's the favorite cake?
What's a favorite cake of yours?
Brownies.
Brownies. Okay, so if you have brownies,
I wasn't sure I heard what you asked. What's my favorite kale? I was like,
oh, sorry,
brownies.
Right.
Brownies. So if you have your favorite cake, that's not going to cause cancer. Sugar doesn't cause cancer. So we have to go in with a more nuanced perspective, right? Not black and white, and relax about our food choices.
And in fact, I think there's a couple of studies about chocolate and stress. Like chocolate decreasing, decreasing stress.
Cocoa, yes.
Yeah, cocoa,
Good
right?
You brought that up. Of course, we'd bring that up, but
hey, why
cocoa
not?
happens to be one of the most helpful foods out there. It has the real cocoa, the unprocessed, is filled with fiber and plant nutrients. It is a plant,
right?
And it's one of those incredibly helpful. The problem is, obviously what's added to it.
Right.
So if you just take straight cocoa and add it to your oatmeal or things like that, you can really enjoy it, and it really has a good effect.
Right. So,
don't avoid it.
You said something though about sugar, and I don't really want to get off on a tangent here, but I was under the impression that sugar does feed cancer cells. So can you just address that in a second?
Right. I'd be happy to talk about that. So, this sugar is a misinterpretation of the research, the very good research that, when you do a PET scan, that area lights up if you have a tumor. And it lights up because the tumor is actually using glucose or the sugar in your blood to feed the cancer.
Right.
But that is the cause of cancer. That is not the cause. That is the result of cancer. Mm-hmm. That already exists. So when you eat sugar, whether it's broccoli or a brownie, your body will convert it and use it for its needs. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we're not going around eating bowls of sugar. We're talking about, healthful amounts that in our lives that we like. But that's not the cause of cancer. And again, we got to reduce that food anxiety around that as well. Okay. Enjoy. See food as nourishment.
I just really appreciate Tamar's approach to all of this because when it comes to reducing your risk, it's all about taking a holistic approach, right?
Right.
Like we all know that diet and exercise, reducing alcohol consumption, all of it leads to healthy lives in general. And so knowing all of these tools that we have in our toolkit, how we approach things in moderation, how we integrate it into our lifestyle, ideally reduces some of that anxiety. And I really appreciate what Tamar's saying about being food positive.
Yes.
And hopefully, your listeners, I'm sure this is something you talk about quite often, but how you incorporate it in a way that is part of your overall life plan on a daily basis, and how you feed your family and how you care for your family. Right. And of course, all of this comes back to, having that conversation with your healthcare professional about what's right for you as an individual.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely want to stress, like, if somebody is, God forbid, going through this or wants to have help to try and ability, speak to a registered dietitian, speak to a nutritionist who's board certified, and get the help, because there is, like Kaya said in her voicemail, there's so much misinformation out there, and you're going to start to avoid soy, and soy might be something that might be good for you. So definitely talk to someone to get some guidance.
Yeah. So not to get off topic about nutrition, which is incredibly interesting. Tomorrow I was looking at your website, and I noticed you also mentioned the importance of activity and exercise. And I wondered if you could take a minute or two to just talk about that a little bit.
Yes, thank you. So, in fact, they just issued new guidelines for cancer survivors because they're seeing such an enormous effect of exercise. And actually, I call it joyful movement. Find something you love to do and do it every day. If you hate the gym, don't go to the gym. Find something you love to do. So what is it about, activity that really has an effect particularly on breast cancer, is that first of all, it modulates your hormone level. So meaning, again, if you have that excess estrogen, which you want to get rid of for the hormonal cancers, it actually reduces the estrogen level in your body. And we're not talking about, doesn't have to be high intensity. So even 30 minutes a day of exercise, there are statistics that it reduces breast cancer by a very large percentage. Another thing that it does, there's this thing, it's called the tumor microenvironment. And that is kind of the structure surrounding your tumor making it grow and enhancing it. So physical activity actually changes that microenvironment. So in a sense, you're making your body more hostile to cancer.
Right.
And again, I do want to stress that you could do everything right. We all know vegetarians and vegans and marathon runners that got breast cancer.
Right.
So this is more about your quality of life. We all want to get out of bed pain-free, and we want to go forward confident in our lives and be able to pick up our kids and things like that.
Right.
So really focusing more on your quality of life, enjoyment of life. And these things I did see that even in the study that we did this summer, that it really enhanced people's quality of life when they focus more on that, on those goals.
Yeah. And I also, just want to add, like some of these dietary changes in the exercise, besides obviously having beneficial effects for your body dealing with cancer, they also have beneficial effects, period, on your mood, whether you have cancer or don't.
Right.
Which is also really helpful,
right. Well,
obviously, in the long run.
Right. Well, also, God forbid, if somebody does get sick, if they're at a place of health to begin with, it's going to be a much easier journey for them.
Or it can be.
Right. A much easier journey than if they're starting in a place of illness and sickness. And I've another question for you, Tamar. Some medications that people are given, if they have cancer, or even not necessarily, but cause weight gain. Do you see people have a concern about gaining weight while they're going through treatment or because of the drugs that they're on? And I'm just wondering how you address that.
Right. So that is a big concern for many people, and especially with the medications given after treatment. It's very different when you're in treatment and after. So in treatment, the whole focus is not losing weight, keeping nourished. So you make it through the treatment successfully. And then after cancer, you have to go on mostly, now it's 10 years. It used to be 5 years, go on the medications that block estrogen. They can cause weight gain. And they cause a lot of struggle in people. So, again, we saw this came out in our study that when you focus on your quality of life and feeling good, what feels good to my body, instead of focusing on your size and weight gain, that is a more successul benefit. So I like to say, reduce your tush time, not your tush size. You will be much more successful that way. And I know weight gain is a concern, but, on the other hand, people don't realize that weight loss, it can be terrifying to someone who's gone through cancer.
Right.
Because they think it's recurred. So never compliment somebody on their weight loss. You don't know what they're going through.
Yep.
And so it works both ways, right? Yep. We tend to focus on the weight gain, but it's also the weight loss that can be terrifying.
Right. No, and it's the waste, people wasting away is it's actually probably a little bit better for them to be carrying the extra weight than what's the word I'm looking for? What's that word with an A? When people waste
anorexia?
away. No, waste away from cancer.
Cachexia.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to point out that the studies bear that for premenopausal status, a larger size seems to be more protective.
Right.
That's what I was getting at.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Okay. That's
so
what
it's always surprising to people to hear that, but it's true. It's in the research. So, don't be,
So Tamar, what 3 points would you leave Chaya with, that she should go ahead and implement? So.
Right. So, of course, like you said, work with a registered dietitian, a health professional that, is solid in their work. But number one would be, again, like I said, flip your plate, go plant forward. And then people always ask me, should I add in? Should I take out? Just add in. Focus on what you're adding in, those good fiber, seeds, and nuts. Number two is the joyful movement. Reduce your tush time. And number three, really have confidence in your food choices. You'll reduce your stress hormones and that food anxiety. And, can I just give one example of a study that was done in that regard?
Yeah.
That, I think they were Ethiopian women. They fed them, they offered them a stew that they didn't enjoy. And then they followed it with a stew that was part of their cultural heritage that they loved. And they actually absorbed more iron in the stew that was part of their cultural heritage and that they enjoyed.
Yeah.
So your body is very smart, even though, you feel like maybe it betrayed you, that you had cancer, but you can still listen to your body and find the food satisfaction and the nourishment.
Right. Great.
Perfect.
Okay. And Jenna, what would you like to leave our audience with in terms of your Sharsheret and what?
Absolutely. No, I would love everyone to just talk with their healthcare professional about what screening plan is right for you and what health choices you should be making, as well as talking with your family about your family medical history. When we talk about risk, regardless of whether you're a carrier for a genetic mutation, if you have a family history of cancer, it does increase your risk. And third is stick to screening plans. As Jewish women, it's very easy to get busy and to push appointments off. But to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're paying attention to your body can mean all the difference in the world.
Yep, that's great. Okay, so you can learn more about Sharsheret at sharsheret.org. And you can go to Tamar's website, tamarrothenbergrd.com. I'll put links to all of this on the website. You can follow Tamar on Instagram at nutrition nom. That's nutrition and then NOM. She's also on Facebook at Tamar Rothenberg RD. Follow me on Instagram at Jill Sharfman. And I want to thank our engineer, Mike Casantini at the Network Studios. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today.
Thank you for giving a platform for this very important subject. Really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure to be here. And Tamar, thank you. You teach me something every time I hear you talk.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Take care, everyone.
And that is it for this episode of Let My People Eat. Please visit our website at letmypeopleeat.com and leave us a comment. Get in touch at our email at podcast@letmypeopleeat.com or call us at 317-659-0004. Post on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook with the hashtag #LetMyPeopleEatPodcast. If you like this show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Tell your friends and family and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please remember that although we are certified professionals, this is not a medical advice podcast. No content, posts, or comments should be interpreted as professional guidance. Always speak to your own health practitioner about making the right life changes for you.
Until next time, I am Jill Sharfman.
And I am Andrea Moskowitz.
Thanks for joining us.
And go in good health.